What up, everybody? It's Chris Roscoe, and this is Operation Moksha, and today I'm going to be building off the last video that I posted that was about what shadow work. I gave you a broad, general overview of essentially what shadow work was, and now I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of how to actually do it so you can start to change your life. So first I want to tell you how you can identify whether or not you even need shadow work. Which is silly because everybody does. But you need to be able to easily identify what needs to be integrated, because you can't integrate something if you're not aware of what needs to be integrated. So that's the absolute first step, is knowing where to look. And let's hypothetically say you're not a super emotionally aware person. Like maybe you're more intellectual and the realm of emotions doesn't really make all that much sense to you. Which is cool. You don't actually need them in the beginning. All you need to do is look at any area of your life that consistently sucks. Do you keep getting in the same relationships that keep ending the same way, or with the same type of person? Do you keep landing yourself in the same type of job that you fucking hate? Do you... I don't know why I'm so blurry right now. Do you avoid doing the things that you love the most on a consistent level? Do you have anger problems? Do you have anxiety? Do you have any number of things? It's just any consistent problem that continues on even though you say you don't want it, and maybe even if you try to do things about it, it continues to persist. You can pretty much bet your ass you've got some element of your shadow that needs to be integrated. So, when you can identify a consistent problem in your life, you can know that you're doing it to yourself, and you can know that you're doing it to yourself in an unconscious way that you probably don't mean to. So good. So if you have unconscious behaviors that are essentially controlling your life to a certain degree, then you can trust that whatever that unconscious thing is part of your shadow that needs to be integrated. Now, to back up, to go over what I said in my last video in case you missed it, what that means is that you've got a part of your personality that you deemed as less valuable than any of the others. And you decided to shove it away from your awareness because you thought it was bad, or you thought it was a threat, or you thought it would lead to some kind of bad thing. And so you shoved it away. And what happens is when you shove it away, it goes into what Carl Jung called your shadow, which is basically just any part of yourself you don't want to look at. And to go over it again, we do that as a means to protect ourselves. We put it in our shadow because we think it's bad. And we don't even know that we're doing this. All that we know is there's a thought in our head that we don't agree with, and we think could potentially lead us down a bad path, and so we shove it away. And so you're not doing this because you're not doing this because you're bad. You're not doing this because you're wrong or stupid or broken or because there's anything wrong with you. You're doing this as an ineffective and misinformed way of protecting yourself. And so all we're going to do is give you a more effective and comprehensive way of protecting yourself. You're doing the exact same thing, but just in a better way. So when you look at any unconscious negative behavior that's persistent, you can bet, okay, so if I can't tell why I'm doing this, and I don't seem to have any control over whether or not I'm doing this, it's because I've shoved the part of my personality that's in control of doing this outside of my awareness. And so at that point, you just begin to put it in your awareness. Because what happens is we have this thing called unconscious competence, right? Where like walking, for instance, when you were a baby, you had to work really fucking hard to learn how to walk. You fell down, you got up again, you fell down, you got up again, probably hundreds, maybe thousands of times. And so at that time, you were consciously incompetent. Well, maybe not consciously because you were a baby, but you knew you weren't good at the thing, and so you had to learn how to do it. And then it turns into conscious competence, which is where you're like good at it and you're like aware that you're good at it. And then you do that long enough and it becomes unconscious competence, where you just do the thing and don't even have to think about it anymore. And that's what happens with a lot of our behaviors, since a lot of our behaviors get cemented by the time we're like 7. So we get so good at either pushing people away because we're afraid of getting hurt, or we get so good at avoiding things that we love because somebody made fun of us for doing one of our hobbies once and we don't want to feel that pain again. We get so good at these behaviors and we do them for so long and in such repetition that it becomes unconscious. We become unconsciously competent at doing things that we wish we didn't do. And so the way to get around that is to get back into consciousness. Because when a thought enters your mind, in your conscious mind, that doesn't add up. You're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. But when you don't actually allow yourself to have the thought, then by pushing it away, then you don't really get you rob yourself of the ability to actively think it through. So really all this is being honest about what you think and feel. That's really all shadow work is. It's just radical self-honesty. It's just being completely honest with yourself. Like, I'll give you an example of this. I used to have anger problems. I've talked about this before on my channel, but I used to have bad anger problems. I was one of those guys that, like, if shit didn't go my way, I would just tear down everyone around me and until everybody was too weak to tell me no. And for the longest time, obviously that sucked for me and everyone around me, and I wasn't exactly sure what to do about it. So once I grew up and realized that I needed to look at these things, I started to look at my unconscious a little bit more. And I was like, oh, okay. What I'm really afraid of is feeling weak. So any part of myself that felt weak to me or vulnerable or anything like that got shoved into my shadow. And so I had to go look at it again. And as you gain awareness of these things, first of all, it's going to suck. Let that be known very, very clearly that at the very beginning of this process, it's going to fucking suck. Because you, to a very large degree, have created your entire personality as a mechanism solely devoted to keeping you from ever seeing this shit again. Let's be very clear about that. We get hurt as kids, we bury the hurt, and we pile on all kinds of fucking defense mechanisms and personality traits and overcompensations and all kinds of things to make sure that nobody ever sees that pain and to make sure that we never have to see that pain again. Like, that's, to a large degree, what the personality essentially is. And so that's what you're working on. You're working on solving one of the most complex puzzles known to man that is equally as intelligent as you are, but has the upper hand because it already controls your mind. So you have to be pretty fucking witty, and you have to be willing to deal with some discomfort if you're going to uncover this thing. So let's be real about that. Now, once you've decided to gain awareness of a thing that doesn't want that doesn't want anyone to be aware of it, and you realize that it's going to go kicking and screaming the whole time, then this is another thing I tell my clients is that if you can hold on for just one extra moment, if you can build one extra moment of awareness on any given part of your shadow, then you've done a damn good thing. And as you start paying attention a little bit more, like I said, you can figure out where in your body it is, start to conceptualize it. Like, does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a voice? Does it have a personality? How old would it be? Would it be a man or a woman? Like, you start to conceptualize all these things and build a relationship with it. And then you start to figure out what it's thinking and what it's feeling, and then you actually allow it to start to vent. And this is the part of the process that you actually want to be careful with, because you can overwhelm yourself pretty easily, because this is going to be pretty overwhelming. This is some of the deepest hurt and pain you're ever going to feel. So please fucking pace yourself. If you start to feel overwhelmed even a little bit, stop. Just stop. Only go as far as you can go while staying grounded and staying effective. Because when I first got into this, I couldn't afford anybody to help guide me through this, so I had to do it all on my own. And what I learned was that I was in so much pain, and I'm so tenacious as a person that I would fight through, and I would be like, no, I can go, and it would destabilize me. And I would end up in bed for a day or something, and I would end up so overwhelmed that I was just in constant, like, psychological pain, and it sucked. So I don't recommend going any faster than your intuitive sense tells you to go. So please, for the love of God, be careful. And just be patient. Tune in. If you start to get anxious, like unnecessarily anxious, and if you start to get like really scared, stop. Just stop. Do something else. Do something that makes you happy. For me, it'd be like play a video game or read a comic book or call a friend or do something like that. Whatever it is that makes you go dance. Whatever makes you happy, do that. And pay attention to how much is too much for you. So you start to vent these things. And what happens is this part of yourself finally gets attention and finally gets validated, which is all we really want anyway. And then it starts to express itself and it starts to vent and it starts to feel better. And here's how I like to explain it is, so like, you've ever been hurt. I'm sure you've been hurt or scared or something like that. Imagine going to a friend and you vent and you get it all out and you're vulnerable and you're crying and you're fucking puking because you're crying so hard. And you're like just really in it. And instead of your friend saying, "Ew, gross, bro. What are you doing? I don't know." Instead of your friend doing that, they just go, "Holy shit, I had no idea you were hurting so much. Like, thank you so much for sharing this with me. Like, you don't have to do this alone anymore. I have your back. Tell me what you need. I will help you with everything that I have." Even in the face of that person freaking the fuck out and possibly overwhelming you. That's what you can do for somebody. That's what you can do for yourself. You can become your own ally in that kind of sense. And it's extremely important to do that. And what happens when somebody does that, like when you get to get all that out and somebody completely accepts you, chances are when you get all the weird shit out, you're like, "Oh, I was kind of overreacting. I actually don't need to worry about this that much, do I? I can think clearly now. I can find a solution to my own problems because I vented." But it's the lack of desire. It's the fear of venting. It's the fear of this entire process of the feelings, because we feel like they'll swallow us whole. Or that if we feel weak, that nobody will love us. Or if we embrace our anger, that we'll become terrible people. Like, there's all these fears that people have of embracing their emotions. And most of them aren't founded in anything. Like, sure, you could get swallowed by your emotions if you just don't put up a fight, or if you dwell on them to the point where they swallow you whole, or if you've put up too much of a fight and you end up losing the fight. Like, that's very possible. But if you find a healthy way to vent in a safe container, you're not going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to die, especially if you know how to pace yourself. Like, it's just not going to happen. You're going to take it piece by piece, allow out as much as you can, but not overdoing it. I would say be more safe than courageous, to be completely honest with you. My training said to just stick around for one extra moment, then you're good to go. And that's a win. And you start to become aware. That part of you starts to vent. You start to understand where you're coming from and what's actually starting to cause or what was actually causing your behaviors. And then once you vented, then you start to see the situation more clearly and you can begin to address it. And once you begin to address it, then you actually integrate that part of your shadow into your life. Because what happens is there's an actual problem underneath of whatever it is we're dealing with. And when you let all the weird shit vent and get all that out and process all that crap, you find out the underlying problem. Like, for me, all my anger issues, once I got through all the hate and the rage and the anger and all of that shit, once I got through that, what that was a fear of being helpless in a world where bad things can happen, which is a true statement. Bad things happen in the world, and there isn't a goddamn thing any one of us can do about it. We're all going to die. We're all going to get sick. Everyone we know is going to die, and we're all going to experience suffering, probably on a daily basis. And there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. I learned that a little too early. I learned that at 7. And so I got really angry. And the only thing underneath of that was that there's bad things that can happen. And so once I got through all the anger and I saw what I was really afraid of, I was able to integrate that perspective into my life and say, like, yeah, every day is a blessing. I could have died this morning. I could have died yesterday. I had to take my cat to the vet this morning. I could have found out she was dying. I could have lost my furry little best friend today. Like, anything could have happened. But instead of that making me withdraw from the world, it can make me cherish every single moment. I can integrate the fact that bad things can happen at any moment into my life and say, you know what, I'm going to give it everything I have because I only have an undisclosed amount of time with the people that I love and an undisclosed amount of time to do the things that I care about. And so why not give it everything I have? And so underneath of, no matter how gross or terrifying or petty or stupid or ridiculous your thoughts and emotions may be, there's always an underlying wisdom underneath of it. And it's the underlying wisdom and it's the underlying concern that you integrate into your perspective. All the other shit just gets vented. And so it's also important to know, the last thing I'm going to say is, while you're doing this process, don't expect it to make sense. Don't expect it to be logical. Don't expect your emotions, because, like, honestly, we wouldn't have to do this work if our emotions made sense. We're all plenty smart. If this shit was logical and rational and straightforward, you wouldn't need me to tell you how to do this. But it's not. Our emotions don't make sense, and they're not supposed to. Because we weren't smart enough to make sense when we made them. We made these beliefs when we were children for the most part. And kids don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. Like when my dad died as a kid, the best thing I could think of was to blame myself so that it gave me some sense of power in the situation. That doesn't make sense. That's not a logical or rational or intelligent thing to do, but it's what I did because I was a kid, and that's the way my emotions are wired. And so you have to get over this notion that any of this makes sense or that any of this is supposed to make sense. It just is what it is. And if you can treat it in a way that with some love and compassion, because all this just comes from fear and pain. So if you can have love and compassion for the fact that all of this just comes from fear and pain, then you're fucking good to go. And you can eventually start to nurture yourself and start to find the underlying wisdom behind these things, integrate it into your life. And next thing you know, you got a good thing going. And you can just keep doing that for any problem that you have for the rest of your life. And you start to begin, you begin to do this, you begin to become this thing called anti-fragile, which is there's fragile systems where when they take a pounding, they break. And then there's robust. I got this from a book called Anti-Fragile. And then there's robust systems that when they take a pounding, they stay the same. But then there's anti-fragile systems where when they take a pounding, they get stronger. And when you master shadow work, you become the type of person that gets stronger when life comes at them. You integrate all the pain and all the obstacles like fucking Mega Man. I did a story on my Instagram page about how Mega Man is the perfect metaphor for this. You face all these demons and all these hardships and all these crazy things, and every single time you beat one, you add their power to yours and you become stronger and you become more capable. And that's what happens when you really master shadow work. All challenges become opportunities to become stronger and to learn and to integrate more. So it's absolutely essential for anyone to learn. I don't care what other practices you do. Like I'm also a Reiki master, and I won't do any other practice unless I can also integrate what I'm learning, because I want a healthy relationship with myself. So thank you. Longest video I've made so far. I hope this was beneficial and worthwhile and entertaining. If you made it through 17 minutes of me talking, then goddamn, thank you. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate your support because I want this to go as far and wide as it can. This is the most important thing to me, and your support means the world. So please subscribe, please like, please share, please help me get this information out to as many people as I can. I really want to change the fucking world, and I think this will do it. So thank you. I love you, and I'll see you next time.